Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am crafting with this gorgeous die set. This one is called Nordic Ornaments and it's really fantastic. It's got all of these really intricate details and then you get separate dies that you can then die cut out and layer on top of your ornaments if you want to sort of have a two-tone effect so that you don't actually have to kind of do partial die cutting or do any fussy cutting to get those elements out there conveniently already separate dies. So I am going to assemble one of the ornaments, this tall skinny one. You have the larger die is the outline die, and that gives you a nice solid foundation to start building up the ornament design. The die that's nested inside there, that's complete. It does have its outline die, and it cuts everything out, and you can then use the separate dies for the two flower shape and the stamen. I accidentally tore this. It's very delicate. And that way you can actually die cut that out of a different color if you want, or the blue, that powder blue or cornflower blue that I die cut the ornament design out of, that inner floral design, it did fall out as a single element, and you could actually just nest that, inlay that right back in and do exactly what I'm doing with these glitter gold cardstock pieces, where I just put a little dot of adhesive in the center so that on the outer edges you can give that a little bit of lift. And I actually assembled two of these because we'll be making a spinner card today. So it's really nice that you have all of these elements, and even that little heart that falls out of the ornament design, you can use that later on the same card, save it for a separate card, or optionally use the separate heart die to die cut out that exact same shape and inlay it back in. So here I've got the nested arches die set that came out I think earlier this year, and I chose two sizes that were basically two apart. So I took one and then picked two sizes up from that. So there's going to be one die that is in between them that I skipped, and that gives me this frame, which I die cut out of some gold mirror card. And this pattern paper is, again, I keep on dipping into the Winter Wonderland paper pad because it's just so gorgeous, and I will definitely be crafting with that collection. But you're seeing peeks of it here and there because it's just a fabulous holiday winter themed collection. So this is one of the papers that's actually foiled from the 6x6 paper pad. And what I've done is I took the smaller of the two arch dies, that inner aperture, and I've die cut that out of my pattern paper. And I'm going to line the pattern paper with my card base and die cut that exact same size aperture from my card base. Now, what I did, you can probably make your life a little bit easier if you don't actually do it in the order that I've done it in. So I thought that I would make my life easier by actually adhering this pattern paper down to my card base and then position my arch die inside that aperture, because now that you have that bit of a raised edge, it's kind of easy to line up perfectly your die so that when you put these two layers on together, it's going to guarantee that they're going to line up 100%. So in some ways, that is the benefit of doing things in the order that I've done them. But in other ways, and I'll talk that to that a little bit more in a bit. When you go to attach your invisible thread for the spinner, it's a little bit harder to kind of hide that thread, because normally I would be hiding it in between this layer of pattern paper and the card base. But I'll show you what I ended up doing, considering I had already went ahead and attached it, and then realized later, oops, maybe I didn't want to actually do that so soon. But it does make sure that the die is positioned perfectly. But if you were to do it in a different order, what I would do is don't actually glue down permanently your pattern paper. Maybe just tack it down with some temporary adhesive so that you can still position it in the same way that I've done, but that it's not actually glued down yet. And you can still run the die through with the pattern paper lined up, and make sure to open your card base so that you're only cutting through the front of the card. But because I knew that I would have this gold frame, that's what I'm going to wrap my invisible thread around. Normally, as I mentioned, I would be wrapping the invisible thread around the card base, which is a lot easier because you have a wider section of card to attach it to. The reason why it's a little bit harder to do it the way that I've done it is because this frame it's maybe 1/4 of an inch wide, and that just doesn't give you a lot of room to work with. And invisible thread is already just a little bit fiddly to work with anyhow, because it's hard to see, and it's sort of plastic, and so it's also hard to kind of bend and stick and everything. So what the order I've done that in, you can make it work, but it's a little bit more fiddly. I think it's been such a long time since I've made a spinner card that I kind of forgot that normally I would not want to be attaching my pattern paper just yet, because you can hide this invisible thread that I'm wrapping around the top of my frame here. You can completely hide this between your layer of card base and pattern paper, and it's a really nice finish. Here I'm gonna have to work a little bit to hide the thread, and I ended up just putting another one of those flowers. You can see it actually on the card base. That's the flower that dropped out of the ornament originally, and so I actually used that to hide it from the top, but at the bottom I just left it because it's not completely invisible, but it's also not super noticeable either. So if you didn't want to bother trying to hide it, I don't think it's only on really close inspection that you would see it. It's not something that really kind of jumps out at you. So I have put some red line tape on my frame so that as I wrap the thread around this frame 2 to 3 times, I have some adhesive to tack that thread down, to hold it down as I continue to wrap it. And of course, the entire frame is going to get glued down to the front of the card, so this will end up being very, very secure. But as you wrap it around, it's nice to have something that's going to hold it in place so that you can continue wrapping it and really get that invisible thread as taut as you can, because that's going to help your, in this case, the ornament is what I'll have spinning inside this arch. And so you want that thread, you can even see how taut it is by the fact that it's actually bending the arch a little bit. You don't want it to be super, super taut or tight. You just want it to have some good tension there. And I use a combination of some double-sided dry adhesive and liquid adhesive because I really want that thread to stay in place. So I did dot on a little bit of liquid adhesive, especially on the thread, to really make sure that that's got a nice firm stick. And the ornament, the reason why we needed two is because we want this to spin and we want it to look nice from as it goes around, and also we need to attach it to the thread. So because the ornament is completely symmetrical, it's perfect, and I think both ornament designs in this die set will work because you can because they are symmetrical, you can match them up 100% and sandwich your invisible thread between those two die cuts. And so here's a little preview of, you know, what that would look like. So before you send it, you would want to spin it just to load up that tension, and then when they open it, it will spin. And so I've got this extra little blue piece. As I said, that's the piece that die cut out of the ornament, all that detailed design. So kind of nice to already have that. I think it does look nice at the top of the arch too. And I thought about maybe putting a sentiment banner at the bottom as a way to hide the invisible thread that I looped around the bottom of the frame. But I feel like this looks so clean and nice that I just left the sentiment off completely. I've been doing that more and more these days, not putting a sentiment on my card. I don't know why, but sometimes it just feels like the sentiment doesn't add to the design. Maybe it's just me. So I didn't like that plain white of the inside of the card showing through. And I debated maybe putting that piece of pattern paper from the inner aperture and adhering that to the inside of the card, but I felt like that would be too busy and it doesn't really make the ornament pop. So I found this specialty card that's really nice. It's from Tonic. It's got a texture weave to it. It's a cream off-white color, but it's also got a little bit of gold pearlescence. As you tilt it, you can kind of see some of that gold come through. It's really, really lovely, and I think it's a really nice backdrop to this ornament. And all of the colors I picked were picked to go with this pattern paper. So I think it's just very, very lovely overall. And it's kind of why I didn't want to put a sentiment here. And this is the sort of card where you probably, to sign your card and maybe stamp the sentiment, I would put that on the back of the card, because so much of the inside of the card is showing through that large aperture. I hope that you enjoyed this card, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell so that you get notified whenever I post new videos to my channel. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.